Hello everyone, this is Professor Man-gi Kim from KAIST College of Business in Seoul. Today we are going to talk about the KSB-IDB Joint Consulting Project under the title of Policy Design Support for Public Procurement for SME and Innovation in Costa Rica. Because of the pandemic COVID-19, we are not able to travel to your country, and also we had a plan to invite you coming over to Korea for capacity building training that I intend to give you a lecture. So instead of having a face-to-face meeting, we alternatively came up with the idea of creating a video clip for your reference. The main content of this presentation had a three-part, and session one was Korean economic development, actually presented by Mr. Chung, U.S. lawyer. Session two that I am going to talk today, SMB and e-government functioned infrastructure in Korea. And the session three, and that is actually technology solution for e-business platform, presented by Mr. Min, our technology partner. My discussion today overall is to give you overall picture and roadmap of Korea small and medium-sized business, and also the SME policy for 6 decades from 1960 up to 2020. And also we are going to talk about the operating platform for the government, e-government, and also function of the e-procurement. And the last component that I'm going to talk about is SMB policy recommendation. Let's first talk about overall view of Korea, small and medium-sized businesses in Korea. So if you have a look at the number of the company in Korea, we have more than 3.6 million company. That is account for more than 99.9% of entire company registration. It belongs to a medium and small-sized company. So the large corporation, we call it conglomerate, accounted a very small number. However, if you look at the total number of employees, SMB accounted only the 81%. The rest of the employment actually is done by the large corporation conglomerate. In Korea, the under current constitution and also the relevant act and regulations, we have a constitution that protect Article 123 and give very clear definition and guideline and protection for small business operation. And also we have more than 19 different relevant related act, rules and regulation to basically protect small and medium-sized business activity in Korea. So if you look back over how Korea did it in the past, 6 decades, I would say, beginning of just after we liberated from Japanese colonization in 1948, we have a beginning of a very early stage of industrialization, and we have actually incubation period of 1980 to 1997, and we have a huge breakthrough of IT and technology in 1998 up to the current stage. So if you have a look at the early stage of 1960, whether you believe or not, our economic situation was very poor actually at that time. As an underdeveloped country, our per capita income in 1960 was just under $100. That was actually even lower than North Korea. Our unemployment rate at the time was 24%. So the country was very poor, even in comparison with any African country. 1960 Korea was very, very poor. However, from that on, the country had a very aggressive, audacious 5-year economic development plan from 1962-66. And then in this period, Korean government with industry support, we focused on industrialization strategy for export. So 1972, our per capita income increased to 300. In 1976, 720 on. So the early stage of 1960 to 1979, Korean government had SMB policy of basically starting off with the legal reform, various types of legal Act and the rules and regulations start to shape form, and also we have a policy reform, escaping from supporting a conglomerate, large corporation. Countries start to pay a lot more attention for small and medium-sized businesses. And also we had institutional support from various type of government entity, start to pay a lot more attention for small business entity. For the economic situation from 1981 to 1997 was rapid growth, focus on a large company, but still we start to have a lot more activity for SMB, largely for IT and technology and basis. So early 1980 and late 1980, we have a Fair Trade Commission was established, and Korean Small Business Administration area was actually formed. And then 1990, we had the first agency called Small Business Administration was established. This was very early stage. And the next period, from 1998 up to the current, we can see even we had the IMF crisis 1997 and subprime mortgage crisis 2008, we had a huge actually increase of the small and medium-sized business activity in various end of the industry, especially for information technology communication. We had a huge number of the Korean IT companies start to shape the bigger and the better form. Under the SMB and small business policy, we had more than 50,000 innovative small businesses born at the time, and also we had a lot of actually companies start employing more than 500,000 new employment done in the early 1998. So we can see all this history with the 6 decades of Korean small business revolution, I would say. We can say there was 6 different key areas of small business policy in Korea. So let's have a look at what is that policy. Number one policy we had, I think this is the successful element for Costa Rica to learn the experience from what we go through. We obviously, as a country, made a lot of mistakes in the era. So maybe going through some of the success element, some of the important transformation stage, you may be able to can learn the lesson from us, and maybe can get a much better idea when you reform or establish your policy. So first element of success, I would say, financial support. So we had a financial support from the public sector as the government start to subsidize heavily to support SMB, to cover their financial risk, cover their manufacturing operation, and also the purchasing of manufacturing equipment. Number 2 element was R&D. Obviously, and if you look at 2019, Korean government spent more than $26 billion of the R&D fund for various types of industry. So we had a very successful R&D project targeting for sustainable growth for small and medium-sized businesses, aiming to be more competitive in global level. And number 3 element is obviously employment support. So when the young graduate from university become available for job market, they first want to go to large corporation. Therefore, it's very hard for small and medium-sized companies to hire quality, talented young people. So government came up with a plan to give incentive for young people to join with small and medium-sized company. And next big item, I would say, number 4 and number 5 is export support along with the marketing support. So we have many agencies such as Korea Trade Promotion Corporation, we call it the KOTRA, or Korea Trade Association KITI, that support Korean small and medium-sized businesses to go abroad for their global marketing strategy. They can use various types of the industry knowledge and also using their satellite office to expand their market share in different markets. The last component, I think we did very well for this period of reform, was to pay a lot more attention on the company with the underprivileged class, I would say. So for example, like women-owned, disabled veteran company, or locally or underutilized economic zone company and traditional market or the startup. So all of these small and medium-sized companies, especially with underprivileged class, they had a lot of disadvantage in comparison to other SMB or large corporations. Therefore, government came up with a funding scale and tax reduction and public procurement advantage, which allowed them get additional merit when they bidding on government contract. So this became very important policy transformation, helping a small and medium-sized business to grow. So go back to sum up where Korea came from 1960 up to now, we can see obviously clear but very difficult transformation when the country back in 1960 with the capita income was less than $100. As of today, we have more than $30,000. Therefore, I don't think we have that many the country in the world under the UN membership achieve what Korea we did it. So in the backbone of our success and behind the last 6 decades, we cannot talk about our economic success without mentioning the roles and function attribution made by small and medium-sized companies. So when we have a look at what we did in Korea to helping small and medium-sized company to participate more into government overall infrastructure, all comes back on e-government, which is a very important function. The part of e-government, and we also is going to talk about e-procurement side. So lesson we can learn from here. I mean, this is some example you can see in the display. We have many public and government entity focusing nothing but small, medium-sized entity. We have obviously a Ministry of Small and Medium-Sized Enterprise, we call it in Korea, the 2017. Previously, this was the agency, lower level than department. Now we have a full-scale department with a lot of funding available. And also we have a Korean SME and startup agency, purely focused on startup company and then promotional program. We have a Korean Federation of a Small Business Union, established 1962. We also have a Korea Institute of Startup and Entrepreneurship in 2002. And also we have a small enterprise and market service 2014, where a lot of small and medium-sized companies can get market service, statistic, and actually a lot of consulting services for domestic production and overseas marketing. So these are some of the examples of the Korean government or public entity focusing on supporting small business entity. So when you have a look at what sort of reform that your country got to have it to promote small and medium-sized company, I think it's very important for the government as becoming champion of this policy to drive industry and working along with them in collaboration with all level of works. Actually, that's very important. So I would like to have a look at it, the Korea operating platform of the government. As I mentioned earlier, there's a policies to support SME in Korea. We have actually a multi-level or holistic approach. Not only is it simply providing policy guidance, we have the finance support, R&D, and human resources function, including capacity building program, education, job training, and also the market research and the marketing support for overseas. So Korea is basically export-oriented market. Without having SME participation with export, I don't think we will be here talking about Korea as the most successful economic model of the capitalism. So to follow what we did in Korea, you may adopt a similar, I would say, not the same, but similar direction as what we did it, because the Costa Rica as a country, a different continent, and your economic level a little bit different, but you are in a very strong position because of your heritage, what you have it, and also your middle income class is very strong. These are some of the examples I would like to share with you. E-business platform available for SME only. Some of the entity, what you see here, we have a more than actually score of the government agency and entity association, purely focusing on supporting SME. It can start from overseas trade mission support, startup company, financial support, global market development, even giving government subsidy to apply for overseas patent, intellectual property. So you can think of anything and everything what you as the business owner of the small and medium-sized business in Korea, you will have a multiple choice of a selection that you can choose where you can get the idea and you can work along with the Korean government. This is basically the backbone of the why Korea is becoming a very strong country to have a very solid actually manufacturing export basis for small and medium-sized enterprise. So maybe this time we have a look at it. Some of the case study for the policy to support SME in Korea is like, as I mentioned, it's holistic, not just one piece for the finance and all other things, but I think we have a combination of sort of one-stop solution package that will start with a statistic for small and medium-sized companies. So you got to know where your company is. I believe that Costa Rica, you have just a little over 160,000 the business register as a small business. In Korea, we have 10 times, actually even more than that, 3.6 million. So in our case, we had a statistic for where all these small businesses, what they're doing, what industry they're involved in. This is very important. So when you have this statistic available, and then you have to encourage them coming in the platform, register what they're doing, because if you do not have a database, very little you can do as a government, as a policy maker, because this is a process of what we did in Korea, and this is what we're trying to create a platform for Costa Rica moving forward. I would like to give you some of the examples, some of the case study here. For example, we have one particular site, it's very famous in Korea, BizInfo. So BizInfo is offering customized policy information, all sort of policy for a small and medium-sized company to deal with the government, rules and regulation, and then integrating the network of the commercial complex information and public purchasing information, including bidding process and acquisition and rules and regulation related to the e-procurement. So you can look at it, actually BizInfo is a portal site providing the holistic sort of solution for small and medium-sized company in Korea, supporting for all sort of policy information readily available. So one hand, we have more than 500 public administration using these services. At the other hand, you have a huge number of SME using this service, such as the finance, as I mentioned earlier, research and development, human resource support, how they start up the business and domestic demand, overseas rules and regulation, certification, management. So you can see when the Korean business coming in, BizInfo site, they can get anything about the building their business in next level. And then we have another one called SIMS. SIMS is another integrated system for managing small and medium-sized enterprise in Korea. The supporting program by central and local government together. So this is a very interesting site. Your country maybe adopt this approach, because the reason this is very important, because through this site, the local government, central government, even provincial government using this site, whereby they can get all type of information for supply information for goods and services. For example, we have more than 2,784 SME support program data available in this system. So we got more than 520 central government agency registered, and also we have over 2,000 local government agencies using the system. So you can see magnitude of the database, the huge database built upon it, and then we got over 1,800 SME support program. Historical data actually, in terms of the amount of money, that you can see the more than $24 billion of the budget being generated through this portal site. So how many companies using it? Over the years, we have more than 7.6 million company, and database is accumulated in here. So with a simple approach to this SIM site, the contracting authority, the central government or local government, can get all sort of information validating your supplier, and also SME as a supplier can get information about the contracting authority as well. So these are the things that what your country need to have it at the backbone of a database where you can encourage both contracting authority of the government, central, provisional, or the local government, and also encourage actually your vendor or supplier of services good. So another one I can share with you is SMTech. It is another integrated system we have in Korea. This side enabling SME to easily and conveniently carry out the procedure of the proposal submission. Like this is a function of e-government, but more focusing on e-procurement, evaluation, reporting, executing R&D project. So through this portal site, SME can submit their proposal. They can see the process of the project evaluation. They can see the title and result of their submission of the proposal. We have a very interesting element of the K-Startup on here. K-Startup is a government-supported portal site exclusively built for entrepreneurship for someone want to start up the company. It can be young student from our KAIST, or can be a young generation want to start up. Even with a high school student can go in there as long as they qualify. They can get entrepreneurship education, a startup package. They may be able to get with office renter support and mentoring and counseling and consulting. A commercialization program also available, and some of the limited funding for startup also available through this portal site. And when they develop the product, what they do actually, this site helping the startup company to go abroad to selling or find a partner for global network and export. Last case that I want to share with you is like a home tax service. Is very interesting concept. Home tax service, we call it HTS, is very crucial. It's a critical part of National Tax Revenue Office, so-called e-tax administration. This is part of the e-government function where you as SME, you can see your status on your electronic billing or tax-related certificate. All of the filing related for your tax return or any other tax issue, you can get it in real time. You will see all the record of your business acquisition, your billing cycle, or the payment you have to make. Make sure you don't have any sort of late payment, anything like that. So all of these 5 cases that I share with you, basic function of this solution comes back in e-government function. So because of the e-government function, the Korean government basically moving toward paperless. So when you pay your tax, or even you go to your local office, get your personal, for example, birth certificate or anything to do with the personal record, we don't need the paper anymore. You can basically log in anywhere, even you're not actually in that country, in that county, you can do. So the entire country is mobilized as a portal of e-government function. So this is what we believe Costa Rica should consider very seriously, how you can adopt what we learn in Korea. And this is part of, I think, KSP, the knowledge sharing program. Benefit of this one is you learn from what we did at Korea as the leading economic development model for the capitalism, and then you can pick and choose which one is more relevant for your country to adapt. Because some of the function we have it may not be relevant, or maybe because our population more than 50 million, our sheer number of the SME is much larger than your country, so you don't need to replicate everything what we do, but I think you can pick and choose which system, which infrastructure, or actually policy is better for your country. I had the opportunity to look at actually comparison of small and medium-sized related law in between 2 countries. In Korea, as I mentioned earlier, we have a constitution, Article 1 to 3, protecting small and medium-sized businesses, and also we have more than 16, 18 different rules and regulations supplement to our constitutional law. When I have a look at the Costa Rica, what you have already, you have actually 4 different laws actually giving the legal framework for the small and medium size to do the business in your country, and you have many other subtitle or act supporting. And so I think legal framework, you already have very solid ground, and then you need to find a system to support. We actually, as Korea, as a leading e-government function, and a couple of years ago, United Nations actually selected Korea as the most advanced, most connected country in the world. I don't have any dispute over that statistic. And then Wi-Fi connection, you will see anywhere you go in Korea, subway, a train station, and you will be connected by public and the Wi-Fi network. So like IT, network is very conveniently and available in Korea. All of the function that I mentioned earlier for SME, for their operation, for their education, capacity building, consulting, and manufacturing, or financial services, or government policy information, all this information also readily available using the government portal site that I mentioned earlier. So the function of Electronic Government Act is very important because the legal framework, we already have it, but I don't see that many electronic government rules and regulations actually enforcing SME be part of the electronic commerce or e-government function, especially e-procurement. So having e-portal is one thing for e-procurement, but what's the point of having the portal site if contracting authority like Korea, central or provisional or the local government refuse or they don't feel any incentive to use it, okay? So nobody using it, your database is no value for country transformation on toward the e-commerce actually. So the last point I want to make it, Korea has obviously very high level of commitment for e-government committee. We have all sort of e-government committee and actually multiple agencies competing each other. Which agency is better? For example, the Korean Public Procurement Service, they're providing a platform for SME and login and register as a vendor. We have more than 400,000 Korean company and daily doing business buying and selling through government portal. And all of the government agency actually forced to use the government portal for e-procurement because there's no other way. Without using government portal for e-procurement, they cannot purchase it because of rules and regulation act we impose. That is, I think, very important legal framework your country need to consider. Obviously, you have a high-level commission for digital government of bicentennial commitment that we can see it. However, I think you need a lot more work toward that. So overall, our recommendation is to come up with e-business platform. So today, as I mentioned earlier, that my session today was giving you overall picture, the status of where Korea has been working from since 1960 up to now, what sort of function we had it, evolution of early industrialization and up to very advanced country. And then you can see right in the middle of our development, we have information technology, the communication industries there, and also e-government, e-procurement, e-sourcing, e-supply, all of the government function of e-government function was there. But key importance is how you're going to collect information for SME. Come up with a solution, encourage all of your SME using your portal site, whether you have rules and regulation impose your SME using your portal site, 160 of all your SME using one portal site, all your government agency using it, and then I think you have a very strong foundation moving forward. So our solution, which Mr. Min from KTNet is going to talk about next section, is concept the e-business platform for Costa Rica. This is the design concept, architect we came up with, learn from our experience with Korea and also our previous research. Our team was there in Costa Rica talking with you, finding your needs and assessment. We even conduct actually the SWOT analysis on which one you have weakness, which part you have a strength. So these are the architect we came up with as a total portal service, a basic and core service, and integrated SME database, which is the backbone of your entire e-government function moving forward. So I hope you can get a lot more clear idea next time. Mr. Min talk about this element of e-government function, our recommendation. So we are here to work with you together to have integrated system for the country moving forward. We have a lot of information and knowledge and experience what we did last 6 decades, especially for e-government function, and how we come up with a policy to promote SME participating industrialization, moving forward with a more advanced country. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you.